Cybersecurity demand is everywhere. Every company needs it. Every system depends on it. Every breach reinforces it. And that creates a very specific expectation that cybersecurity should lead to high compensation. Because if everything depends on it, then it should pay at the top. But that assumption breaks, and it breaks consistently. Because for most roles, cybersecurity does not scale the way people expect. Not because it lacks importance, but because of how the system assigns value. At first, the demand looks overwhelming. More threats, more complexity, more systems to protect, which suggests more value and more compensation. But demand alone does not determine pay. Structure does. And cybersecurity is structured around prevention, not expansion. It protects systems. It monitors risk. It reduces exposure. But it does not directly expand output. And that difference matters. Because systems assign value differently to growth and protection. Growth scales. Protection stabilizes. And stabilization behaves differently. You don't scale security teams indefinitely. You build enough coverage, enough monitoring, enough response capability, and then you maintain it. Which means the role does not expand continuously. It stabilizes. And when a role stabilizes, compensation stabilizes with it. This is where the pattern becomes visible. Many cybersecurity roles cluster around $100,000 to $120,000. Not because they are low value, but because they are widely distributed. You can add more analysts. You can expand coverage. You can distribute monitoring across teams. And when work is distributed, individual leverage decreases. Because the system does not depend on one person. It depends on many. And when leverage is distributed, compensation stabilizes. This creates a structural range, not a hard cap, but a consistent pattern. You can exceed it, but most roles remain within it. There is also a layering effect inside cybersecurity. Some roles are reactive, monitoring alerts, responding to incidents, maintaining systems. Others are structural, defining security architecture, setting policies, controlling risk at a system level. And those layers do not pay the same. But from the outside, they often look similar. Same title, same domain, different leverage. And that difference compounds over time. Most roles remain in distributed layers. Few move into control layers. And that is where compensation diverges. But those positions are limited. You don't need many people defining security strategy. You need a few, which creates selectivity and reinforces the distribution. There is also a perception gap. Security feels critical, because it is. But critical does not always mean concentrated, and value concentrates differently than importance. You can have a role that is essential and still widely distributed, and when it is widely distributed, compensation stabilizes. There is also a visibility layer. Security work is invisible when it succeeds. Nothing breaks, nothing fails, everything continues, which reduces perceived impact, even if the underlying value is high. And perception influences valuation, which means low visibility reduces upward pressure. There is also an operational paradox. Security failures are rare, but when they happen, they are extreme, high impact, but low frequency, which makes continuous value assignment difficult. The system does not price rare events evenly across all roles. Instead, it concentrates value in specific positions: incident leadership, security architecture, system-level risk control, and those roles are limited, which reinforces the structure. Wide distribution at lower levels, narrow concentration at higher levels. This is why demand alone does not change the outcome, because the system is not optimizing for coverage, it is optimizing for stability. And stability spreads work, which spreads value. This also explains why switching companies often produces limited jumps in cybersecurity roles. You move into a new environment, a different risk profile, a different structure, but the same distribution applies. And over time, the same range appears again, because the role itself has not changed, only the context has. So when you see cybersecurity salaries clustering around $120,000, you are not looking at a failure of the market. You are looking at a structural equilibrium, a point where risk distribution and system design converge. And unless your position changes, that equilibrium tends to hold. You can keep improving, deepen your expertise, expand your scope. But the system determines how far that translates into compensation, which is why most engineers in security reach that range and remain there, not because they can't go higher, but because the system does not assign that level broadly. This is part of what I break down step by step in the $200,000 system below.